Hi, this is Kim from the Owensville Branch Library, and today we're going to delve into the mysterious world of nocturnal animals. First, we're going to talk about what is a nocturnal animal, what helps them navigate through the night, and also we're going to look at some pictures of different nocturnal animals that you will find right here in Ohio. Let's get started. First of all, a nocturnal animal is an animal that is most active during the night. That means they will sleep somewhere during the day, and at night is when they will get up, roam around, hunt for food, and do most of their daily activity. Diurnal animals, on the other hand, are animals that are most active during the daylight, and those would be birds and squirrels and animals that you would see a lot during the day. They sleep at night. A crepuscular animal is another type of animal that is active and looking for food more at twilight and dawn. Twilight is that time of night when the sun goes down, but it's not quite dark yet, and that's when you'll see these animals come out. And dawn is in the morning right before the sun comes up. And a lot of times this is when you'll see fox, you'll see coyotes, those types of animals. They can also roam around in the night, but they prefer twilight and dawn. And finally, we're going to talk about adaptations. These are special features or characteristics that a living thing has that helps it survive in its environment. And nocturnal animals have very special adaptations that help them move around and see and hunt in the night. So let's find out what those are. Nocturnal adaptations. There are actually four main types. There are hearing. They use their ears. Eyesight. They have special eyesight. Echolocation, which is something that we'll talk about later. And they also use their noses and their sense of smell. Now, we're not going to turn out the lights right now, but there's a fun game that you could play later. And what you do is you hide either stuffed animals or items around a room, and then you turn out the lights and see how many you can find in 1 minute. And then talk about the different things that you use to help you find them. Were you able to see them? Was it something that had a smell that you could smell? Could you hear it? Did it make a noise? Or did you just reach around with your hands and try to find it? It's a fun game and fun to talk about. First, we're going to talk about hearing. Nocturnal animals have two different adaptations when it comes to hearing. Most of them have cupped ears, and these are ears that kind of cup around. They're not flat, and they catch sound. And you can simulate this by putting your hands behind your ears and cupping them forward, and see how much better you can hear things when you do that. The second one is called asymmetrical hearing. When something is symmetrical, that means it's the same on both sides. With some animals, they have what's called asymmetrical hearing, and they're able to move their ears back and forth independent of one another, and that allows them to hear things that are in front of and behind them. And you can do that by cupping one ear forward and then putting your hand in front of the other ear and see what you can hear. Things sound a little bit different that way, don't they? How do you think this type of hearing might help nocturnal animals? I'll give you a chance to think about that. Next, we're going to talk about eyesight. Nocturnal animals have three main adaptations regarding eyesight. Remember, adaptations is something that helps them to survive in their world. First, most nocturnal animals have very large eyes, or particularly large eyes for their bodies, and they have a bigger pupil, which is that dark part in the center of your eye that can collect more ambient light. And ambient is just another word for low light. The second is they have plentiful rod cells. Now we're going to stop here and talk about the two main types of vision cells. Remember, a cell is what different things are made out of, and the two cells that you find in the eyes are the rods and the cones. The rods help you sense light so that you can see the brightness of things, and the cones help us with color. Nocturnal animals' retinas, or the part around the pupil, are composed mostly of rods. This allows them to see much better in the dark, but they don't see very much color. So if you've ever looked at night vision goggles or night vision on your cameras, you'll notice that there's not very much color. It's usually a greenish, grayish color, and that's the way that animals see. The third is called a tapetum lucidum, which is just a Latin word that means bright carpet. This is a layer of cells that are beneath the retina, and they act like a mirror. It reflects light back into the rod cells, the ones that collect light, and it's because of this that nocturnal animals' eyes sometimes seem to glow in the dark. And you might even notice this on your dog or cat. They're not necessarily nocturnal. However, they do have very good sight in the dark, and this is one of the reasons. Let's take a closer look at a nocturnal animal's eyes. Next, we're going to talk about eyesight. Nocturnal animals have three main adaptations regarding eyesight. Remember, adaptations is something that helps them to survive in their world. First, most nocturnal animals have very large eyes, or particularly large eyes for their bodies. And they have a bigger pupil, which is that dark part in the center of your eye that can collect more ambient light. And ambient is just another word for low light. The second is they have plentiful rod cells. Now we're going to stop here and talk about the two main types of vision cells. Remember, a cell is what different things are made out of, and the two cells that you find in the eyes are the rods and the cones. The rods help you sense light so that you can see the brightness of things, and the cones help us with color. Nocturnal animals' retinas, or the part around the pupil, are composed mostly of rods. This allows them to see much better in the dark, but they don't see very much color. So if you've ever looked at night vision goggles or night vision on your cameras, you'll notice that there's not very much color. It's usually a greenish, grayish color, and that's the way that animals see. The third is called a tapetum lucidum, which is just a Latin word that means bright carpet. This is a layer of cells that are beneath the retina, and they act like a mirror. It reflects light back into the rod cells, the ones that collect light, and it's because of this that nocturnal animals' eyes sometimes seem to glow in the dark. And you might even notice this on your dog or cat. They're not necessarily nocturnal. However, they do have very good sight in the dark, and this is one of the reasons. Let's take a closer look at a nocturnal animal's eyes. In this diagram, you'll see the picture of a nocturnal eye, and you'll see there's the pupil. They have a large pupil, and then the iris is the part around the pupil, and then the lens is behind the iris. You'll see where the retina is, and then behind the retina is that green colored, it's called the tapetum, and you'll see that that's in a nocturnal animal's eyes. But if you look at the diagram of a day active animal, you'll see there's no green in that one, so they don't have that pronounced carpet behind their eyes to help them collect more light. And you'll also notice that in the day active animal, you'll see 4 rods. Those are the ones that are the rectangular. And in a nocturnal animal, you'll see they have 9 rods in this description. Also, you'll see there are 4 cones in a day active animal, so they'll see a little bit more color than the nocturnal animal, which only has 2 cones in their eye. So these are the adaptations that help them see well in the dark, but they see differently. Echolocation. There's that large word we used earlier. This is primarily used by bats. There are other animals and insects that also use it, but primarily bats use this method of finding their way around in the dark. It works because a bat uses a high-pitched sound wave, and it reflects off of all the objects around it, and those sound waves return back to the animal. If you've ever dropped a rock into a bucket of water, you've noticed that the waves spread out, and then they'll come back. So sound waves work the same way. This animal can tell how big the object is and how far away it is by the intensity. That's how loud it is, and the pitch, that's how high or low it is. Large things give off a high intensity, that means it would be very loud sound, and small things give off a lower intensity, so that's not quite as loud. But things that are close have a higher pitch, so that's going to have that higher, real high pitch sound, whereas objects that are far away will have a lower pitch, and so it'll have a lower sound, so they know that it's further away. Later, you might want to play a game with your friends or your family called Bat and Moth. You want to have one person be the bat, and they'll use a blindfold. Another one will be the moth, and have the remaining players form a circle around them, because you want to make sure the bat and moth can't run off very far. When the bat claps once, the moth must clap twice, and the goal is for the bat to catch the moth and the moth to stay away from the bat for as long as possible. So that's a fun game that you can use later that kind of helps you show how bats use this form of navigating through the night called echolocation. Nocturnal animals also use their sense of smell. Many nocturnal animals, such as foxes and raccoons, have a very acute sense of smell. That means they can smell things very, very well. A fox or raccoon sense of smell is comparable to our own sense of sight. That means they can smell things even before they can see them. And this allows them to find food many miles away. They can also sense danger many miles away. Can you think of any other adaptations that might help an animal hunt or move at night? I'll give you a minute to think about it. Something we didn't really talk about was touch. And some nocturnal animals and other animals have a very good sense of touch in their paws or their feet. They also have a sense of touch in what's called whiskers, which are little whiskery things that like you see in a mouse or a cat, and they're very, very sensitive, and they can feel things with their whiskers as well. I don't know if I can think of any other ones. Maybe you can. Here are some nocturnal animals of Ohio. Let's look at the different adaptations that they have that might help them in the dark. We have two here, the Virginia opossum, which you've probably seen around here. And even though it's called the Virginia opossum, it actually does live in Ohio. You'll notice that it has a big nose for smelling. It has little feet and hands that it probably uses for feeling. And it has those nice cupped ears that it can hear very well. The other one is the American badger, which you've probably not seen around here. They live mostly up in northern Ohio, but you'll see its big nose for smelling and also its cupped ears for hearing. The American mink. It does live around here. In fact, they actually live in the Cincinnati Nature Center. If you've ever been there, you'll see its little cupped ears, its big nose. And then the striped skunk, which I'm sure you've seen around here. It also has the little cupped ears and the big nose. Now, you might have noticed something else about these animals. Most of them are very dark in color, and camouflage is also another way that nocturnal animals can use in the dark to be able to not be seen by predators. Camouflage just means a way to blend into the environment, and because of their dark color, they blend in very well at night. There's the raccoon. I'm sure you've seen raccoons around here. You'll see his little cupped ears, his big eyes. He has whiskers. You'll see his hands for touching and feeling things, and also his big nose for smelling. We have many rodents that live in Ohio, and one that you might not have seen around here is the southern flying squirrel. It lives more north as well, and you'll see its little cupped ears and its big bright eyes for seeing at night. There's a picture of the woodland jumping mouse. You'll see he has a little kangaroo legs in the back, which helps him jump. There's also a meadow jumping mouse, a house mouse, and a brown rat, and they're all very similar. They all have the little cupped ears, whiskers, their nose, and their eyes that help them. Here's an interesting creature called the hairy-tailed mole. Now, you'll see that he doesn't have eyes. They're actually blind, or ears, because they spend most of their time underground. So they use their sense of smell and their feel. You'll see his big feet there for tunneling and navigating through the tunnels underground. Some more rodents that you'll find in Ohio is the North American deer mouse, the white-footed deer mouse, and you'll see his little big eyes, big whiskers, and his big cupped ears. The woodland vole or prairie vole and the southern bog lemming. You'll notice their eyes are not very big because they spend a lot of their time underground or under brush and leaves as well. So they have the little cupped ears and they have the whiskers and noses for smelling. Bats. Those are very well-known creatures of the night. And you'll see, if you look at all three of these pictures of bats, what is their biggest feature? If you said ears, you would be right, because that's what they use when they use echolocation. They have to have very big ears for that sound to come back to them. And their ears also swivel back and forth, like we talked about. The asymmetrical, where they can listen behind and in front of them. Here's a picture of a little brown bat. We also have big brown bats, eastern small-footed bat, and Indiana bats, which are all similar. Here's the northern long-eared bat. He has the biggest ears of all the bats. And then the hoary bat. Some more bats you'll find in Ohio is the tricolored bat. He's called this because he has 3 different colors on him. The eastern red bat, which I've seen around here, and they have almost translucent wings. That means you can see right through them. And the silver-haired bat, and you'll notice they all have those big ears. Another animal that we see primarily at night is the owl. And here are 3 different owls that you would find in Ohio: the barred owl, the eastern screech owl, and the great horned owl. And if you notice, their biggest, most prominent feature are their eyes. They have very big eyes, and they have very, very good eyesight, especially at night. And if you look at the barred owl, you can see how his face is kind of a dinner plate shape. That helps bring in the light and reflect it all back to his eyes so that he can see real well. Here's a northern saw-whet owl, a barn owl, and a long-eared owl. And you'll see the barn owl also. They all have that kind of rounded face, but some of them are more prominent than others. But you can see, and that's to bring the light in so that they can see much better when they're out hunting and flying around. All right, here are some resources that I used to come up with the different information that I presented today. And I would encourage you to go to the wildlife.ohiodnr.gov, and they have 2 great publications there that you can bring up right on your computer, and they're guides to the different animals of Ohio, and it'll even tell you whether they're crepuscular, whether they're diurnal, or whether they're nocturnal, and hopefully you know what those words mean now. A couple of books here at the library. It's one called Creatures of the Night by Camilla de la Beadore, and Nocturne, Creatures of the Night by Traer Scott. We also have many more books on just owls, just raccoons, if you want to learn more about specific animals. So I hope you've had fun. I hope you'll play our 2 games that we played, Moth and Bat. And I hope that, and also turn out the lights. And I hope you had fun learning all about nocturnal animals. Thank you. Bye.